Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. This week we've got live music in the studio with the Old Double E, a trio of locals making old-timey sounds. We'll meet a couple of people from the public Montessori program at George Washington Elementary School in Kingston, and we'll start with former alderman and former candidate for mayor Andy Turco-Levin. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Jimmy. How are you doing?
Of course, you're a realtor as well, and you've always been a realtor.
Always been a realtor. Almost 15 years now.
So, and we were chatting before the cameras rolled. You said that's what someone said to you, is that when the market is down, run for public office.
That's right. When one of my clients said to me, wow, in a down market, I see good realtors go and run for office. So that's what I did.
And the market did go down. I mean, it was that the bottom fell out of the real estate market 3.5 years ago now, is it right?
Well, actually, the market really started to turn around 2007. So we took quite a while to slow down. And I would say nearly 5 years we've endured a pretty slow, sluggish market. But, you know, we're all anticipating great things, and the market has picked up. So,
well, what is the scene in real estate in Kingston and Ulster County? That's primarily where you're based, right?
Right. I do all of Ulster County, part of Greene County and Dutchess. We are seeing more people starting to look for homes again. It feels like consumer confidence is really starting to come back, with the interest rates still being really low, historically low. I think that's been a big incentive, and the prices have dropped. So now more than ever, the affordability factor, at least in this region, has been really good. If we can get our taxes under control, it'd be a little bit better, but that's why I ran for office.
Are there any particular hotspots that you would point out, great places to look right now?
Woodstock's always been a huge attraction for the second home markets, the Stone Ridge area. But really, there are a lot of great places all throughout Ulster County. There are a lot of great options for things to do here. And it's a really great place to live and raise your family. We're seeing a lot of folks from the city coming up, especially in the city of Kingston, relocating here. We have great walkability factors, and it seems that a lot of folks now are trying to get away from that suburban feel and really kind of move their attentions closer into being a small city again. It's really great.
Yeah, you really have a passion for this. I see you out and about. I see the posts you make on your Facebook page. You have a passion for not only taking people to these places and finding out what suits their needs, but you recently made a post about that great feeling you get when you're at a closing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The great feeling at a closing, well, that particular time I posted that, it was a young couple who bought a house over on Henry Street. And immediately, anyone local, they think Henry Street, oh my word, what are they doing? And this was a young couple who came, they particularly wanted to be in the Montessori program with the George Washington School, so they focused on that area. I was excited for that because in Midtown Kingston, there's so many bad stories going on and a misconception that it's unsafe. And here's a young family who wanted to come in and put their roots in. And I think that's what we need to push, and that's what we need to see to revitalize some of these Midtown neighborhoods like that. So I was excited for them. And first-time home buyers, they're just the best. They're fun.
Now, prior to your real estate career, you were a rock and roll disc jockey.
Yes, I was.
For quite a number of years, right?
Many. All over. You move Detroit, Atlanta, LA, Santa Barbara,
Albany, right?
Albany. I got my start at PIX 106 in Albany.
And so
DST and Woodstock.
For a time in DST. Now you've combined being a realtor with radio. You have a real estate radio program.
Right. I host my real estate radio program on Hudson Valley Talk Radio, WGHQ, locally here in Kingston, Saturday mornings at 9:30. We call it Keeping It Real, and it's a show that focuses solely on the local real estate market. I wanted to take my radio sensibility of being able to communicate, put my knowledge of the real estate market into the ability to interview people and talk about issues and things that homeowners might not think about or whatever. When you're at a cocktail party and people find out you sell real estate, you can talk all night long. They'll have a gazillion questions. So I wanted to bring my knowledge and the things that go on within real estate transactions and bring it out to public. I also wanted to try and reinforce the importance and the value of what realtors do and how important the role is that we play in these transactions. I mean, you wouldn't have your next door neighbor taking out your appendix. So why would you do a transaction that could be the most money you've ever spent on anything with an amateur or doing it yourself? So I wanted to try and reinforce that.
And is each week's radio show, does it focus on a single topic? Is it wide variety?
We choose different topics. I choose a different topic and try and figure out what would be of value to the listener. We've done shows about property assessments. I had Dan Baker, the City of Kingston's assessor, on talk about the assessment process, how to go about grieving your taxes if you disagree with them. This coming week, we've got Tom Collins coming in talking about commercial real estate. I've had the folks in from RUPCO to talk about the first-time home buyer programs. Local lenders talking about the mortgage process, home inspectors about the home inspection process. If it has real estate to do with it, everything. I even had an elder care attorney come in to talk about estate planning, because the home is part of that, and staying in and holding on to your assets.
And an educated potential home buyer is got to be an asset to you as a realtor as well.
Well, it's better for them too. Knowledge is power, and it's really important for them to understand the process. And the more they know, the better it will be for them to select a good realtor. If it's not me, hopefully they'll select a really good realtor who understands their needs and can help them out.
So, civically minded, civically oriented, are you thinking of getting back into politics at all in the city? I know that you are active. You participate in the Kingston Land Trust. You're involved in Movie Under the Stars, right?
Right, and the Kingston Land Trust and the rail trails, part of the Kingston Local Development Corporation. The mayor appointed me on that a few years ago. I stay active in the city. I'm not planning on running for anything this cycle, but you never know in the future. But right now I'm just really having a great time trying to make a difference, make our city better. And I love where I live here. It's my hometown, so I think it's a great asset for all of us. If I can help in any way, that's what I want to do.
Well, thanks for coming by, Andy.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're watching Kingston Now. Next, we'll explore the public Montessori program at Kingston's George Washington Elementary School. Welcome back to Kingston Now. A few years ago, a public Montessori program was started at the George Washington Elementary School in Kingston. Here to tell us more about the Montessori method of education and how it works at George Washington is Ann Loading and Philippa Gaudet. Hi guys, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Or ladies, if you don't mind. So when I said a public Montessori program, it's because most Montessori programs are private. How unusual is it to have a Montessori program in a public school?
It's a really wonderful thing. It's pretty unique, but they're growing because the Montessori method is being seen, by officials, superintendents and such, principals as a wonderful, viable option for the public sector. We have a couple public Montessoris in Yonkers that have been around since the 1980s. There's one, I think, around Albany. So it's very exciting that we have one in Kingston. I think Indianapolis, I heard, was making a lot of their public schools Montessori as well. So there's a nice big push, I think, to integrate Montessori into the public sector.
And so can you briefly explain what the Montessori method is?
The Montessori method was developed by Maria Montessori, an Italian physician, actually, in the early 1900s. She, developed her method based on observation of the children. So it's very scientific. Typically, it's 3-year groupings. So Montessori begins at age 3. So our first group is Children's House, so it's 3 to 6-year-olds. And then our next group is Elementary 1, which is 1st through 3rd grade. And then Elementary 2, which is typically 4th through 6th grade. We're just going to have 4th next year. But the Montessori method is, very individualized. We take detailed records on the children. So we bring the children to the lessons wherever their level is. So we know all of the work in the classroom as teachers. We know where the children need to be brought next. And so we watch them do the work after we give them a lesson, and we know if we need to show them again a different way, or if they're ready to move on to the next work. Children are able to also really explore their own interests. So very science and very social studies based curriculum. One of the hallmarks of a Montessori educated child is whenever you ask them, how did you learn how to read? And they'll say, I taught myself. Because they did, but we guide them along the way.
So contrast that with and I come from a family of teachers, so I'll be careful how I phrase this, but sort of the more institutionalized approach of education, which is everyone gets the same curriculum, and whether their pace is the same or not, they get the same curriculum. How does that work side by side in a public school?
You know, I always call that like the one size fits all, and that's how I was educated. And you know, what happens is if that work was right for you, which it'll hit this small portion of the class, then you're going to move along nicely and it will feel comfortable, and you know, everything will run smoothly. And if you're a child who already knows what the teacher's teaching, you're going to be really bored. And I think that it takes the passion out of learning for those kids. If you're a little bit, you know, below what the teacher's teaching, or very, you know, if your academic level is very below, you're going to really struggle. And a lot of times those kids really, you know, they struggle, they don't like school, and then again, behaviors. So, you know, it's very different. In education now they call it differentiated instruction. And so there's a push in traditional schools also to move towards, you know, teaching kids exactly where they are. But unfortunately, you know, I think a lot of that structure, just the traditional structure lends itself to, you know, teaching, you know, one size fits all. So, you know, I think that in Montessori, it for me, as an educator, I fell in love with it because it spoke to me. It was, oh, you know, that's why I was bored, and I wish I would have had this as a child.
And Anne, you're a parent of a child in the Montessori program.
Yep.
And you're also involved in some of the activities at the school. But first, from the parents' point of view, how's the experience been?
Well, I'll start out by saying that when my daughter was you know, becoming school age, I didn't even know what Montessori was. I mean, it was kind of like, oh, it's one of those private school, mushy education things, right? And a friend of mine said, no, you have to learn about it. And there was a presentation at which one of the teachers and Val, the principal, they were all there. And, you know, they had a lot of terminology that they were using that I wasn't quite understanding. But what I did understand is that Brenda, who ended up being Ada's teacher, explained that at the core, what Montessori is about is if a child comes to a teacher and says, look, this pencil, I need it to be sharpened, the tip broke off. That in a regular school, the teacher would say, okay, well, here, take it over and sharpen the pencil and give it back. But in a Montessori school, the teacher says, well, what should you do about it? And then the child then becomes part of, you know, learning. I mean, yeah, it's a little thing to learn, but still they've become invested in their own learning.
And actually what you're involved with in the program sort of placed that too. You're in charge of the natural playscape?
Well, I initiated it, but I wouldn't say I'm in charge of it.
Well,
certainly, yeah. I mean, we had an idea. I had an idea several years ago. When you go into the children's house, the way the school is set up, there's basically a concrete, or I guess it's a macadam courtyard, where, as you guys know, when you drop the kids off there, particularly in the summertime, it's like 20 degrees hotter in this little courtyard because you've got the solar gain from the sun, and it just doesn't make sense. Where the kids are getting this really beautiful experience inside the school, and then they come out to this blacktop. And I had heard of a playscape designer named Rusty Keeler and read his book, and I said, this is exactly what we need. And a playscape is essentially a naturalized area that allows kids to explore the environment and play with boulders, stumps. There can be water features. There can be a tree house, a hill, and it's basically the natural world brought into a smaller area. And it ties in very well with the Montessori approach, which is encouraging kids to find their best way to learn. So we started the Montessori, the Natural Playscape project at the school, and we're doing it in a phased manner, so that we're going to start actually with improvements or alterations to the existing playground, and that's part of it, so it'll serve the whole school population. And then at the same time, we're going to create an outdoor classroom specifically for the Children's House children, so they can actually learn and experience things outside, whether it's, you know, building birdhouses or playing with bugs, whatever they want to do. And then the third phase will be to do improvements, take up the macadam and make a natural playscape right outside where the Children's House the kids go in. And although it's primarily for the children, I will say I think to some extent it's also really important for the parents, because, you know, a lot of parents take their kids there And you don't really get a sense that you're part of a community. You're just kind of standing around waiting for your kid, and there's nothing that's saying hang out here. I mean, the school is not just a place for 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It can be part of the community.
Well, it sounds terrific. Thanks both of you for doing the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Kingston Now. Next, it's some old-timey music live in the studio with Kingston's Old Double E. Welcome back to Kingston Now. The Old Double E is John Adamai, Earl Lundy, and Ed Butler, and they're here to perform a couple songs from their debut EP.
Man behind me grows potatoes. Man behind him grows sweet corn. Guess what I had for my dinner? Potatoes and sweet corn. I don't buy no potatoes. I don't buy no sweet corn. When the moon's low, I sneak out for potatoes and sweet corn. I like to eat potato. I like to eat sweet corn. Most of all, I like together potatoes and sweet corn. I got a gal, little and low. Used to like to shake it, but she don't know more. Lord, now somebody been using that thing. As sure as you're born, somebody been using that thing. Used to shake it high, used to shake it low. Used to let me shake it, but she don't know more. Lord, now somebody been using that thing. As sure as you're born, somebody been using that thing. In the front yard, standing in the rain, girl got an armful of shaking that thing. Lord, now somebody been using that thing. As sure as you're born, somebody been using that thing. as you're born, somebody's been using that thing. I know a gal shakes it fast, ain't no woman that's in her class, Lord, now somebody's been using that thing. As sure as you're born, somebody's been using that thing. Shakes it high, shakes it low, telling you boy she's the one who know, Lord, now somebody's been using that thing. As sure as you're born, somebody's been using that thing.
That's it for this week's show. Thanks to Andy Turco-Levin. To hear her real estate show, go to HudsonValleyRealEstateForum.com. Thanks to Ann Loading and Philippa Gaudet of the Public Montessori Program at George Washington Elementary. To learn more about it, go to gwlovesmontessori.org. Remember, all of our previous shows are available on our YouTube channel, and you can find that link on our Facebook page. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. We'll see you next time.